turn it over to Anne-Marie. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Eric. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here talking to you about a topic that is very much has defined my professional career, which is the zigzag path. So when people look at my resume, they're often a little bit confused and they do a double take. They see international affairs, they see management consulting, director of a tech incubator, 2 master's degrees, and now I'm CEO of a CPG e-commerce business that was recently featured on an Amazon Prime TV show, so a zigzag path. For a long time, I wasn't sure if this variety was really a strength or a weakness. Certainly a lot of people had a lot of thoughts and a lot of things to say on my career choices. But what I've learned and what I want to share with everybody today is that I actually think that this nonlinear journey is really the roadmap for entrepreneurship in the modern digital era. So we're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about how I turned professional unfulfillment into purposeful business, how I leveraged a global pandemic to strategically future-proof my career with data skills, and how a trip to South America led to launching my business Ola Bola, which is a product that's literally the manifestation of my nomadic desire to have portable comfort anywhere I am. So my goal is to show you how every one of my experiments, career-wise, has stacked up to create the skills and the network that power my career today. So like many of you will, I started my post-undergrad life on what everybody told me was the right track. I landed a job at a prestigious management consulting firm in DC, so I had the title, the prestige, the right salary, everything I was supposed to want. I was success by every external metric. But after a few years into my career, I found that I was unfulfilled. I was burnt out, I felt underappreciated, and I couldn't really see the immediate impact of a lot of what I was doing. And around that time, I took my first real vacation in a couple of years to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, for the World Cup. And I had read a lot about pacification policy going into it, which was supposed to be an economic framework that was going to help bridge the socioeconomic gap between the better off and the less better off. And when I got there, I didn't see any of that. So I absolutely fell in love with the Brazilian saying, deixa a vida me levar, which means let life take me. So it's this idea of flow. And you kind of just go with the flow and you figure things out as challenges come along. And it really struck me that a lot of people really lived this way despite their economic circumstances. So I was coming from a background where I supposedly had everything. A lot of these people had nothing, but they were so much happier than a lot of the people in DC, including myself. So when I flew back to DC, I kind of felt that I just couldn't get into it anymore. So the dissonance had really struck a chord with me. And I felt like I needed to go back to Brazil and understand, what I was seeing. So I finished up the consulting job that I was on. I had put in my 2 weeks notice, and 2 weeks later, I found myself on a plane to Rio again, going to a volunteer program in a favela. So for those of you who may not know what a favela is, they're kind of the shanty town, more slum communities that are often seen on the hillsides of Rio and throughout the rest of Brazil and a lot of South America. And I just wanted to understand where this happiness came from. So this was the first major personal pivot that I made based on fulfillment over prestige. And moving to Brazil wasn't ultimately about just volunteering. It became the first step that I took towards becoming an entrepreneur. When I decided that I wanted to stay there past the 3 months of the volunteering program, I realized that I needed an income. So I took my first remote gig as a content editor part-time. I also was doing some gig work on Upwork, which is a platform you guys may have heard of. And I even had a short stint as a club promoter. And during all that time, I was still living in the favela, and I noticed that there were a lot of Jeep tours coming through. So to me, it seemed a bit disgusting because it was very much like gawking at poverty. The people running the tours were not from the favelas. They weren't contributing to the community in any sort of a meaningful economic way. And a lot of what they were saying was often false. So I thought to myself, what if I partner with nonprofits throughout the favela as well as some community leaders, and we actually put together a sustainable model of tourism? And that's exactly what I did. So I found 5 different nonprofits that I really liked the work they were doing. The tour was about 4.5, 5 hours on foot. And it gave tourists a chance to actually interact with favela residents, as well as a percentage of the profits went back to each of the nonprofits as well. And I'm really proud that some people still donate today. So we created a really sustainable economic framework. So basically, I would say from that the lesson here is entrepreneurship is about recognizing a problem or a gap in the market, but real success comes from building a sustainable solution that provides positive value towards all parties involved. Oh, and I will say also that somehow I got on the Lufthansa airline staff internal review board, and I started having huge groups of like 20 to 30 Lufthansa airline staff coming through the tour. And because of that, I ended up not spending any marketing dollars on the company. So fast forward a bit, after a couple of years in Brazil, I did decide to go back to the US. I went back to DC and I worked my way up to a director role at a tech incubator at a large multinational research firm while getting a master's degree at GW. So now I was back on the corporate ladder, but I had a lot more fulfillment in my career and direction as well. Because the role was hybrid, I also had good work-life balance. So I was a little bit on the remote train before everybody else was. But then all of a sudden 2020 hit. And 2020 became the big external pivot for everybody. Everybody was forced to go online, even education. So I faced a decision at that point in time. Do I renew my lease in DC, going into what was going to become winter, what was most likely looking to become lockdown situation? Or do I have an exit strategy? And I had already been to Mexico a couple times, and I decided if I have to be isolated, at least let's do it on a warm beach somewhere. So I chose Mexico, packed all my stuff into storage, and moved. And the decision wasn't just impulsive, it was very strategic. I figured that if the world could fall apart this quickly, I needed to maximize my personal and professional skill sets in such a way that I could be location independent. And that's one of the pillars of that drives a lot of the decision making that I have within my career currently. So while in Mexico, I actually decided to pursue a second master's degree at a prestigious university in Charlottesville, which you may have heard of, called UVA, in business analytics. I figured I needed hard, globally transferable skills like data analytics, that were going to be remote proof and that I could use to build this location independence permanently. Because data doesn't care what city you're in, and advanced analytics will ensure that you can add value from anywhere in the world. So this is called strategic skill stacking. I was layering the strategy consulting background that I had with the policy knowledge from undergrad, and now deep technical knowledge as well. So it provided the foundation for what ultimately became the ultimate pivot for me, which was becoming a consumer product entrepreneur. And so fast forward again, I switched companies, and now I had an opportunity to become a junior partner at a boutique consulting firm that specialized in destination development, which for me seemed like the most perfect fit, taking all the global expertise and my experience. But 3 months in, the company became acquired, and I found myself without a job. So that was something I couldn't really plan for, but I decided to take it. In such a way that I was going to learn from that experience and use the time to build out an idea that I had. So at that time, I was in Peru visiting family. I decided to extend the trip, make it 3 months, which was the maximum my visa would allow. And it turns out that my family has a lot of entrepreneurship background. So I had this idea in my head for building out a portable beanbag, because every time I went to a beach or a park, I didn't want to carry around a lawn chair. I find them to be very bulky, very cumbersome. They're not particularly comfortable. You're always higher up than somebody else at a concert and they get upset at you. So I decided to work on this idea of a portable beanbag. And it turned out that I had one aunt who specialized in materials. I had a cousin who did marketing. I had another cousin who was import-export. So I leveraged my family's knowledge to help me rapidly build the prototypes for Ola Bola and bring it to market. So I think this has 2 critical lessons. One is that a lot of great ideas come from solving your own recurring problems. And 2 is that your personal network is often going to be your best investor. And the investor doesn't have to be money. it can be time, it can be knowledge, and they're going to be, in your back corner, which is invaluable, especially at the beginning. So once I left Peru, I now had the product prototype, but I didn't have infrastructure. So ChatGPT at the time was still nascent, but I leveraged it extensively. I used it to navigate the patent process, the trademarking process. I used it to help me build my business plans, figure out kind of what I wasn't thinking about within the whole process of bringing this product to market. Used it for the design files, and it basically leveraged any kind of technology that would help lower my barrier to entry. In addition to that, I started joining networking groups so that I could exchange ideas and learn from people who had knowledge that I did not at the time. But my biggest leap of faith was definitely with the media. I was kind of delulu enough at that time to actually audition for Shark Tank at an open casting call. I didn't have anything except the prototype. I didn't have a single sales at that point in time. I just had a good product story. So while I didn't make it onto Shark Tank, I connected with the producer that I interviewed with, and we kept in touch. And down the line, he made me aware of a new TV show that was being launched on Amazon Prime called Buy It Now. So I applied, and all of a sudden I found myself in LA pitching to Gwyneth Paltrow and Jamie Siminoff. So from that experience, I would say what I learned was that from a matter of going from zero to prime time in a matter of months, is that the power of a compelling story. Relentless pitching, and also leveraging the media to build instant brand recognition and awareness. So today we're a few months post-show, and the focus has entirely shifted to scaling and operations, which is where my business analytics degree is now coming into play in Ola Bola. Right now I'm operating multiple sales channels simultaneously. I'm intensely doing direct-to-consumer on my Shopify shop, and I just opened up a shop in Amazon as well. I'm also looking at potential retail placement in regional stores, and I'm aggressively pursuing B2B collaborations. So I've had some success with different brands that we create branded Ola Bolas for them, and they have them for gifts, they have them for just different events and stuff like that. Looking at potential university branding and things like that as well. And operationally, I'm in the process of moving production from Peru to Mexico. Obviously with the tariff situation that comes into play, in addition to the fact that in Mexico I'll be able to have more oversight over the quality assurance process, which is very important. I'm sure you guys all understand that even the best product in the world can fail if the supply chain is brittle or too expensive. So I'm constantly optimizing that process. And the lesson here is that entrepreneurship isn't just about having a cool product, it's also about the operations that go into it. All right, so how does this tie back to you guys and your studies? Well, how does a career that went from global policy to a portable beanbag tie into what you guys are doing? So first, I think it's that D2C is a feedback loop. So you have to look at the data that's going into every click on the website, any ad placement and how that works, every inventory decision, right? If you want to be a successful entrepreneur in today's world, you have to understand data. You have to understand how to analyze it and how to use it to drive decision making. You guys are here, you all know that. But a couple of real world examples of how that has come into play with my business. When I first launched my website, I noticed that I had a huge spike in traffic, but I didn't have any conversions. So when I went in to look into why that was, it turned out that there was a glitch in the checkout that was causing an issue. So the data allowed me to go back, identify that very quickly, pivot, and then I sent out another email to the same distribution list, letting them know what had happened, and now we had some conversions, which was great. Even more recently, I'm trying to figure out where my web traffic is coming from, because I have a lot of direct web traffic without doing any advertisement in the recent cycle. So I need to look into that most likely this weekend, but it's a good problem to have. But if I can figure out and pinpoint what's driving that, I might be able to optimize it to drive, more traffic. So I would say from that, in addition, another lesson would be to embrace agile prototyping. I pitched to a TV show before I even had a prototype, and before I even had a single sale from the prototype. I would say that is an example of agile prototyping. Don't wait for perfection, because don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough, right? Iterative prototyping, get it out there, get feedback, make it better. And I would say third is recognize the strategic value of the pivot. So my decision to move to Brazil was based on seeking personal fulfillment. My decision to get a second master's degree was a strategic decision to become remote capable anywhere in the world. And I would even say that the decision to launch Ola Bola came from forced unemployment. So there's something to be learned, something to be gained, even when life throws a curveball at you. Every career and geographic change was a form of market research as well, and also skill stacking. So learn to view disruption not as a setback, but as your most valuable and fertile ground for innovation. So to wrap up, I want to leave you with 3 takeaways for your own careers. One is that skills are portable, but prestige is not always. Invest in your hard skills like you're doing here, and they can travel with you anywhere that you go. 2, fulfillment is really the true currency. Don't confuse a prestigious title, don't confuse the sexy job, with personal fulfillment. Prioritize whatever motivates you, whatever it is that you love in some capacity, and then you won't mind the late nights, you won't mind the long hours, you'll be excited when the problems arrive, and they will. So it also, when you're following what you love and what you know best, it also is where the best ideas can come from, because they're so relatable. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is the only wrong path is standing still. I took a zigzag path, which wasn't straightforward, but it was always moving forward. It doesn't matter if your plan changes, but make sure that you do have a plan. I embrace anything that's nonlinear, even, see every failure, the lesson in every failure, and then you're still moving forward. View it as an experiment. Nothing's going to be bad as long as it's not a learning opportunity. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you guys might have.